What's up, PLO Order? This is the first part of 3-video series where I'm going to explain live play. And we're going to do it in order. We start from ground level explanation, pre-flop, why do we do some things, what do we do, very beginner level explanations of the basics. Then on the next video, we will talk about more advanced concepts and strategies, and then on the third part we focus on how to gather information on the opponents, how do we exploit them. And well, let's get started. And here I have one table open. We're going to do just one table, and I disabled my HUD so we don't have that additional information. Very basic strategies. Some of the opponents are familiar. I try not to exploit them too much unless the pot is really big, because I care for money. But mostly let's try to keep it very simple and very easy. And 8-9 deuce 6 from the big blind. Often people think that okay, we can play almost any hand on the big blind. Here's 65 cents in the big pot and we have some connectivity. This hand is just bad, and we shouldn't play any kinds of hands. Like versus 8 position open, we can definitely call a lot. Some people call 80%, some people call 50%. The results are quite the same. But this hand is so poor that we don't want to see the flop with that hand, because the playability is horrible. Rainbow hands in general are not worth playing unless they are heavily connected with the 4 cards. And here we don't. We don't set mine in PLO most of the times. Now, King, Queen, then 5 is kind of hand that if it was unopened, we would open from the small blind. We want to open around 30% of hands. But when someone opens, if we call, we're out of position for the rest of the hand. So we need really strong hands here. And King, Queen, then 5, the 5 is so-called dangler, which means the 5 doesn't connect with anything else on the hand. So effectively, we have 3-card hand. And to play 3-carded hands, we really want to be in position and more so open ourselves. 8 Queen, Queen 9, strong hand, not suited, high pair, very playable hand, but not good enough to 3-bet. If it was double suited, we could 3-bet this, kind of open, but now we just call. Hand is too good to fold and not good enough to 3-bet. And 3-way pot general strategy is to play for value. Heads up, we could argue should we bluff or not depending on opponent. We will get to those in later videos. But the standard strategy here, when there's overcard and we have a tri-pocket pair, let's just check, see if turn helps us. And then the flush completes. We don't often have fold equity. When the board pairs, people will check most of their flushes. And now this guy donks 1/3. Could be a bluff, but at small stakes, this is very often value bet, full house or not flush. And now this guy raises, so he should have pocket kings, or I don't know if, well, pocket jacks probably raises here too. But let's see what he has. And he has Jack 8, which is a bit thin in my opinion to raise, because most likely opponent calls with better full houses only. And now opponent didn't probably have a full house. No, he has just King Jack. So we're not going to talk about making notes. I just make that note for myself. We will talk about in the third episode what those colors mean, how should we use them, and so on. Then deuce 8, very crappy hand. We don't want to call with small pocket pairs unless the hand is exceptionally good. From under the gun, ace 10 8 5, not good enough, doesn't have a nut suit. And here, 10 8 7 4. This is a hand where often beginners like to peel the flop. But when you play disconnected bad hands, what happens, you will hit low equity hands on the flop, medium strength hands on the flop. And that often leads to problem, especially when you are out of position. Button opens, we should have pretty tight range here, calling or defending small blind around 15%, which is kind of same range we open from under the gun. So if you want good shortcuts, then your small blind defending range should be the same range you open from under the gun. And you will be quite good with that strategy. Another disconnected hand. Very disconnected hand. As a standard, it's not even open from the button. We want to open around 50%, so the top half of our hands, and very disconnected low suit hands are not in that category. Ace Jack Jack 8, definitely openable hand. If it was suited to ace, it would be actually a really good hand. Now it's kind of medium strength, but with the ace, definitely open. And then we flop the top pair. And now we have two options. Either we bet or we check. And I decided to bet. It's ace high board. We want to protect versus flush draws. And we don't want to give free cards to random 3-4 pocket sevens type of hands. So we want to protect, and small bet works really well. They can fold their air and cut shots. Now when he calls, most often he has three kinds of hands. Flush draws, then ace-x hands, and some random pocket pairs that he just refuses to fold. But now he decides to go for bigger sizing here. Most of the times, worst hands in his range are ace-king, ace-queen type of hands with flush draw or something. And our ace-jack is not good enough. If we call the turn, unless the river is jack or 8, we are not in a good shape. Probably deuce might be a good one. But most often the river is a blank, and if opponent bets, we face a really tough decision. So we can just fold weak top pairs on that kind of situation. King and 5-4, very disconnected. We don't want to even limp. If it was at least a better, we could complete and see the flop. Then very disconnected hand from the big blind. And now it becomes more marginal. Because button opens, he's going to open a really wide range. And we have a pretty disconnected hand. And king 10, if the tree was higher, like 6 or 7, it would be very easy to call. But now the tree is dangler. And as a rule of thumb, we don't really want to call with just 3 card hands, where one card is totally useless in any kind of combination with the other cards. Queen 8, 10, marginal. My advice is have a really tight calling range. Most of the times the problem is people call a bit too much pre-flop. And we don't make money by calling. Now we get first pretty strong hand, sort of premium ones of today, not super monster, but ace queen 10 7 double suited has pretty nice connectivity, so I don't mind. Now we are under the gun with pocket sevens, and as a rule of thumb, single suited sevens or small pocket pairs from under the gun, we really much want to open when it's double paired or it's suited to ace, as a rule of thumb. Like ace 7 7 3 suited to ace, we could open. Ace 7 7 9 suited to ace, definitely we would open. But the racket small pocket pairs are really problematic hands on PLO. Then try queens. This is kind of hand where people definitely call a lot. And versus button open, who has the widest range, we can call with suited Broadway pocket pairs. Now, if we would have ace, king, queen, queen that we don't 3-bet, we could just 4-bet here because we are then ahead of his range and his range. But now, when blow is deep, let's just call the flop and see if we hit it. And then we flop the second nuts. which is kind of strong hand. Now the question is, do we want to raise? And he bets exactly half of Losa's range. Losa's stack, which means that if he shoves, he can reshove, which is not sure if it's sign of having the nut flush or sign of making a nut flush blocker bluff. But either case, I think we get most value and he doesn't bet the turn. Let's try to get value from small flush on the river, and we do. It goes a bit, and he has a straight. Okay, we can value from hands. I didn't think we could. Kind of interesting hand because the sizing he chose. I'm going to sit out to explain what went on in that hand. Let's play pocket aces first. Nice that we can one. We open pocket aces. We missed the flop completely, so the question is, do we want to check or do we want to bet? And the board is so draw heavy that if we check, there aren't really that many blank or safe rivers for us. And I bet small on the flop. He makes a quick call. I think if he has a really strong hand, he would think a bit more. But now when the 10 pairs the board, I think we can definitely bet half a pot. We have nice fold equity versus all kinds of draws. And river is an interesting one. Because now we beat everything else but the 10. I'm going to talk about this river bet too in a bit. Why do we bet 1/3 on the river? It's an important concept that is crucial to understand. And let's just sit out the next hand so we can get to the replayer stuff. And let's go with this hand. Now, in poker, the rules are that if raise is at least twice the amount of the previous bet, it opens a new betting round. On some poker rooms, there's different rules, but this is what most online poker rooms use, which means that if he bets 230, I call and Losa shoves 451, then his raise is less than 230, because then he would raise 221 more, which is less than 230. So then low Kyyberi cannot re-raise. He can just call and I can just call. But now when he chooses the sizing 225, it's actually 1 cent less than half of his stack, which means if I call and Losa shoves, then low can re-shove. And very often that is used with hands that want to get the money in on the flop. If the board was king deuce 3 with the flush draw, then that could easily be king deuce, set of deuces, set of threes, kind of hands that wants to get the money in now and not play turn and reverse because it doesn't improve that often. But when the board is monotone, it changes. If he has the nut flush, he doesn't really need to protect it that much. Of course, if the board pairs, it sucks. But if the board doesn't pair, he has the nuts. So now the question is that sizing pure coincidence? Or did he choose that sizing? And I think he chose that sizing because it's less than 1/3 of the pot. And it's less than 1/4 of a pot. So it's hand-picked sizing. So he wanted to bet less than half. Now the question is that a hand that we beat that like Jack-high flush draw wants to get the money in now if we call, which weakens our range a little, maybe in his eyes? Or is it nut flush who just wants to make us call, he shoves, and we think we're pot committed? I don't know. We never know for sure. But definitely I don't want to raise because I want him to shove and then see what he does. And probably whatever, if he shoves, then we're going to get the money and we have the second nuts. If Blow has the nut flush, we're going to lose our stack, most likely. But he folds, Turn is kind of blank. Yeah, it completes a straight flush, but we have the blocker, so we don't have to worry about that. So now we have Mr. Blow, who has, or should have, 3 kinds of hands. Nut flush, that beats us. Smaller flush, and bluffs. And I'm not sure if he should bluff their 3-way when there's shorty who has 3-bet. It's really bad spot to bluff. Of course, he did make a semi-bluff, which I'm not sure if I agree that is a good play. If we donk, it doesn't make sense. If we check the flop, of course, we could donk turn, bet river, and try to get value from the low flushes, but I think that sizing on the flop should be nut flush or nut flush blocker quite often. I can't really find why any other hand would do that. So if he has the nut flush, we're going to lose our stack. If he has a nut flush blocker and we don't, we might give him an easy way out. So we just check, and he checks back. Now when he checks back, it's hard to believe he has the nut flush. He could slow play it, but now he can't get the money in on the river easily. So I think he would bet nut flush. So the assumption is we have the best hand. Now, once again, we have a pretty difficult situation. Do we get more value by betting? Or do we get more value by checking and letting him bluff? And I have a concept that helps here. It's called basic river model. Some of you might be familiar with it. The basic idea is if he has the better hand, then it doesn't really matter what we do. We're going to lose the pot and we're going to lose a bet. So the question is, does he have more bluffs or more value hands in his range? And when he checks the turn, I don't think he has bluffs in his range because he would bluff the turns with those. So if we check, it's harder for him to have bluffs because he would bet the turn if he has a nut flush blocker and he wants to bluff with it. So I think his range is heavily weighted towards made hands. Might be set, small flushes. And if we go big, if he has like 7 high flush, it's a bit too easy for him to fold it. So I decided to go small and also give him a room to make a heroic bluff like, oh, he just calls the flop, checks turn, bet small. I sense weakness. I'm going to make him fold, or he might overplay jack high flush, or ace 5 with ace of hearts. Decided to just go to showdown on the turn, but now picks up bluff. It's a concept that is all most relevant to small stakes. It's give your opponent a chance to do something stupid if you know he might do. And as here, opponent is unknown, as everyone in this video, and small stakes players often make mistakes, so I decided to choose small sizing to give him room to do something stupid, and we might get value from hands that would fold to a big bet, which was the case here. If I would bet big, he would definitely fold 6 and 7, 5, and I think his flop bluff was really bad. He has only a cut shot and weak flush blocker versus short stack who have 3-bet. Often you don't have fold equity on those when the SPR goes below 1. And then he makes the cut shot and ends up paying us 20 BBs in value. So, good for us. Now, second hand I wanted to talk about was pocket aces. We're going to discuss about paired boards more on the next video where we talk about more advanced concepts. As a ground level, I would say if the board is rainbow or the cards are very disconnected, it's a board where we can see bet quite often versus one opponent. We have a lot of fold equity. Here it is, only tender Mia is involved in the hand. I chose 1/3 sizing. In modern, pretty tight, fast-forward poker, 1/3 works probably better than half a pot versus unknown opponents. Because now we need to win the pot 1 out of 4 times, so if he folds more, or at least 25% of his hands, we will make profit, even if when we don't have aces. Now we actually have aces, so we might get value. So decide to bet. If you remember in the video, I said if we check back, it creates problems on the turn, because then on the turn, any turn between 6 and queen or spade is really bad for us. And if it's a blank, an opponent bets, we have the problem that, okay, we checked the flop, we showed weakness, we have pocket aces, can we fold the turn? So if we check an opponent stabs the turn, it puts us in tough decision, which is definitely one option. We will be talking about that in next video, how to navigate those. Sometimes we can more value by checking the flop, but it puts you in harder situations, and the strategy, or to form and execute a good strategy, is harder. Because if we just check here because we don't have a monster, and then opponent bets and we're like, oh, I don't know what he has, I'm going to fold, then that's probably a bad strategy. So these are the bet. Opponent calls. He can call with wide range, all kinds of draws, trips, full houses, overpairs. But when he makes pretty quick call to small bet, then if he had an 8, I think he would think for a while that, okay, he bet small, should I raise now? What's my side cards? Or if he has pocket tens, he might think, do I need to raise now? Especially when we bet small. But he makes a quick call, which to me is an indicator of medium strength hand. A bit more of the more advanced strategy for the next video. But that's the reason why I decided to bet the turn. He checks. Once again, he can have 8, he can have 10, but he can also have any straight draw, any flush draw, any overpair. And when we play versus range, it means that, okay, if his range, 80% of his range is a draw, 10% is overpair, and 10% is strips, then we definitely want to bet here to protect versus draws, get value from overpairs. And if he raises at small stakes, raise here is 95% of times a trips, and we can just fold our hand. But he decides to call, and river is really good, because now what happens when there's 3 tens on the board, if he has 8, we beat him, because we have full house, aces and tens, and he has trips. But if he has pocket kings, he's thinking that, wow, the only hand that beats me is aces or 10. That's very unlikely. If he has a draw, he's going to fold, but people here very often call with pretty much any pocket pair, because the software shows them that you have a full house, and they don't fold full houses. So I decided to call 1/3, small sizing, but if he has like pocket jacks, bit nasty, all the draws miss. Even pocket 9s, pocket 7s might call, and he folds, which makes me think he has a flush draw, straight draw. But we can value on the turn. So, let's move on, let's close this one, and let's get back to action. Only 2 hands, but I think those were pretty good hands. Jack 10, 7-7, kind of hand we could definitely open from the bottom of our open range, but when there's open, we just fold. We should be folding a lot when people open, and just call with really strong hands. Racket hand, rainbow racket hand, it's small blind versus big blind. When we're going to talk about more advanced strategies, then definitely we will be talking about the spots where we could open this hand, but this is definitely not. And when there's open, once again, we need really strong hands to make calls. Ace Jack 9 middle position is kind of interesting, because Ace Jack 6-9, because we have suited ace. If there wasn't open, definitely hand we could open. It's a bit racket, but suited ace is quite strong, and Ace Jack 9-6 is going to connect with a lot of boards. One of those middling hands from the late position, cutoff and button, definitely playable and openable hand. Under the gun, not that much, but then on the middle position, it gets really close. Ace Jack deuce 4. Now the question is, sometimes people just go bananas on the small blind, like opening any ace. We don't want, because we're out of position. But then when we are going to talk about adjusting the players in the third video, we will be talking about how any information on the opponent affects our ranges from the small blind. What are the things that makes us go wider? What are the things that makes us go tighter? How to adjust. But as standard, we want to open around 30%. And once again, easy shortcut, 30%, pretty much cutoff range. So you can open cutoff range from the small blind and you're going to be doing pretty good. We missed the flop 3 ways in a limp spot. There's no reason to start the bluff, and when there's flush draw, I don't want to do it. If it was rainbow, we could make a stab with 1/3. But when there's flush draw, the chance of someone having a flush draw makes the fold equity much smaller, so it's not the spot to bluff. And as a rule of thumb, 3 ways we don't want to bluff a lot. Heads up we bluff, 3 ways we play for value. Ace Queen 6 9 middle position. Once again, it's very disconnected, and 3 of the same suit really hurts. It makes the chance of opponent having a flush lower, and it makes the chance of us hitting the flush lower. So 3 cards, same suit is bad in PLO, and suited connectors are bad. Like Ace King of same suit is really bad. We open rundown, definitely from button. 2 pairs, queens and 3 threes. There's min open, and then there's a call. And I don't think the hand is good enough to 3-bet. Double suited, connected, yeah. But now, let's just call, and we're going to hit the set or full house 1 or 4 times. Set of quads. And min opener bets half a pot. We have no idea about his min opening range. We have no idea how much he c-bets, but I'm going to make 1 call. We have 4 outs to make a full house, which would be probably good versus his range even if he bets. And he can bet the flop with all kinds of flush draws, all kinds of air. So let's just check down. And let's go to showdown. Wouldn't be surprised to see an ace, but he could also have a flush draw or weak hand. And he has min open 10-10-3-9. That's a really bad open. And then, yeah, the bet on the flop was kind of bluff. I don't hate it. And double suited 8-5-6-3. About those rundowns, if it was 8-6-5-4, I would open. But 8-6-5-3, it's a bit too disconnected. It has triple clap. No, double clap. 7 and 4 is missing. So double suited rundowns, the smaller the rundown is, the more it has to be connected. No caps. And then if it's bigger double suited rundown, there can be slightly more caps. And it's kind of the borderline. If you open 8-6-5-3, especially in some where people are a bit tight, it's not horrible. Here, pocket tens with the third 10 really hurts our hand. Chance to hit the set, which is the only strong component we have, is halved. So definitely just fold that one. And let's go for a bit further. We are already half an hour to the video. Open and 3-bet. As a rule of thumb, we don't cold call 3-bets. And I think I have explained in a lot of my videos why. It's really hard to be profitable. There are some very special situations, but as a rule of thumb, don't call 3 bets. King into 6, racket. Now we have ace, king, queen, jack from middle position. And we have 3 of the same suit, which kind of hurts, but it's still a strong hand. I mean, 4 Broadway cards, not suit. It's worth opening, although it has 3 of the same suit, which really hurts the hand. Ace, king is suited, it really hurts the hand. Like ace, queen, jack of clubs would be much better hand, actually. Because then there's a chance we get the nut flush versus king high flush. This hand doesn't have the option. And then we get 3 callers. Everyday life in small stakes. We miss the flop. Don't start to bluff here with queen blocker or anything. Or don't bet the turn. Everyone checks, okay, we bluff. Versus 3 players, the chance of making everyone fold is super slim. And we have some nut out, so why not just hit the river? And we don't hit the river. No hero bluffs here. It's a spot where we might make people fold, but more often than not, someone has a bluff catching hand. And then we're on the button with double suited queens. And now the question is, do we want to 3-bet or not? If it's very connected, like queen, queen, jack, 10, ace, queen, queen, jack, then we could 3-bet or even squeeze here. But now, just call. Nice hand, we'll hit a lot of flops. And then really small bet on paired board. Well, we did this more as a... Well, we had aces, but we would do the bet with probably most of our range. We have 2 outs to pretty effective nuts. We have 1 backdoor flush draw. We have 7 blocker. Small bet, I think we can definitely call. Because if he's just stabbing the flop with 10-10-9-3, which he previous player was, he's going to check back the turn. And he did check. Too bad the river is a diamond. It doesn't have bar hand, but also at the same time, it's really hard for him to bluff the river. So most of the times he's going to check back. And he had a wrap who made a backdoor flush, so we had the best hand on the flop, we had the best hand on the turn, and he just hit one of his outs, but couldn't get any value for it. So the outcome was pretty decent for us. Then we have ace 8-8-5. Which is pretty much single suited. We don't call these medium pocket pairs unless they are double suited or some heavily connected hands. Ace queen 9-5, it's very disconnected, not good enough to open. And then we have ace king king 7. Let's see if this is the last hand, depending do we get action. And yeah, of course, about brief sizing, always use pot. I mean, opens 3 bets, just make them pot as a standard, makes your life easier. Now we are middle position with rundown. If tuner would fold, this would be folded. Double suited, I would open. Single suited, not good enough. So you can see that the criteria of playing hands is really tight. And small stakes, where the rake is high, we should play only good hands. Because the rake eats so much from our wings. And with all those marginal hands, they are quite break-even-ish in the long run. And if there's 50 BB rake, the break-even turns to minus EV. Pocket ace is definitely open. No action. And the higher the rake is, the tighter we should play. That's just the way it goes. It's really hard to make money in high rake environment if we play a lot of marginal hands. Now we have on the big blind we have open and a call. So the question is, do we want to call this or not? And it's very close. I will make a tight fold. Kind of small blind. We are in the middle position. So calling with pocket tens, we could do it. I mean, I think the call is standard. 10-9-3, suited to 10. You can still make the call, but it's going to be very break-even-ish. And I made the phone to emphasize it's better to play tight. If you have a tough decision, like and I'm not sure if this is good enough, like 10-9-6 definitely would call. Even 10-9-5 I would call. But 10-9-3 is really close whether we call or fold. And I decided to phone, probably or most likely if I would just play normally. I'm just going to sit out here and explain. Normally I would make the call, but now as we do the beginner ground level, very basic level strategy, then good advice in my opinion is if you are in doubt whether to call or not, so you have a bit tougher decision pre-flop, not sure. It's not, you're not like, okay, this is 100% call, easy call. But you have to wonder, like, is this a call or not? Then it's always better to just fold it. Because folding is EV0, you don't lose anything. The decision of fold didn't cost you anything. Even on the blinds, the blind you have posted is no longer yours, it's in the pot. So it's not yours. You already lost it. But if you fold now, it doesn't cost you anything further. But if you're not sure about the call, then it's very marginal spot. Might be minus EV spot, might be plus EV, we don't know. But there's a high chance that it's not very profitable spot. It's probably 100% sure it's not very profitable spot unless your pre-flop strategy is really, really flawed. So most of the times in the best case scenario, it's break even-ish. Worst case scenario, it's quite a lot minus EV. So it's like EV0 decision versus decision that is most likely minus EV might be marginally plus EV. So then it's always better to have the EV0 instead of making minus EV plays constantly. And of course, if you're not sure, like I'm not really sure whether I should open or not, I would open the hand on Omaha Pro, PLO Matrix, check board choose ranges, or solver, or ask anyone you know. Just find out, should I call or not? So the next time you have 10-9-3 racket hand, or 10-9 anything, you know the threshold, you know what solver would do, it's easier to make that decision. So, hope you enjoyed. I tried to keep this short. Of course, we're now 40 minutes. I was got carried away, and we've had 5 interesting hands, but I hope you enjoyed those hands. And next set on this series will be a bit more advanced, so we're going to talk about a bit more why do we like paired boards and aces and so on. I hope we get good hands. We're going to go more in depth about the strategies. So once we know the basics, very beginner level things, pre-flop, so on, we step one step further, but we're not still exploiting our opponents heavily. We take a step slightly more towards advanced concepts. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you on the next part. Stay safe in the galaxy.